These are part of a group of 13 letters relating to a British soldier who had been wounded in Normandy and was recovering in hospital afterwards, written by men in his unit. So this is part of a series of videos that we're doing for Heritage Open Days, going behind the scenes, looking at some objects that have been donated to us fairly recently and aren't on display yet at the D-Day story. So this is Derek Broomfield, who was a Lance Corporal in the Royal Engineers. He was known to everyone as Kip. And he was in 222 Assault Regiment Royal Engineers, so they were equipped with tanks, with Churchill Avery tanks, and he was a wireless operator and loader in one of these tanks. And he arrived in Normandy in August 1944. In the fighting later that month, his tank was hit by enemy fire. He bailed out, he got out of the tank, but he was wounded by a landmine, and he'd actually lay out there wounded for quite a long time. He was first in hospital in Rouen in France and then was brought back to the UK from September to December 1944. He was undergoing operations. He had to have one of his legs amputated below his knee because of the injuries from the landmine, and he was fitted with an artificial leg. So that obviously took a long time to recover from. And what these letters are, and so it's a group of 13 letters in total, these are just two of them. They're letters from men in his unit who are still serving on the continent, but who want to keep in touch with him and are writing to him in hospital. These are both letters from the same soldier, Trooper H. Moore, in Kip's unit. So he's still involved in the fighting, writing to Kip in his hospital bed. And amongst other things, he says, "I wrote to your mother and I've had a letter back from her. Has she been able to see you yet? I didn't tell her exactly what had happened when Kip was wounded, in other words, because I thought she would be worried enough to know that you'd been wounded." And then he continues, "I think half the squadron has read your letter and they all want to be remembered to you." And then he talks a bit about what the unit has done since Kip was wounded. "Well, Kip, we've sure done a lot of travelling since you left us. Just now we're up in Holland trying to fathom out yet another language. We went through Belgium so quickly that I didn't even get a chance get a drink of their famous beer." So he's referring to the fact that after the Battle of Normandy ends, the Allied armies advance quite rapidly and pass through quite a few different countries. Then later on he continues, "Over here the saying is that BLA," which in reality stood for British Liberation Army, which is the name for the British soldiers fighting on the continent. "Over here the saying is that BLA stands for Burma lies ahead, but I hope not. I've had quite enough now, and think I could very well settle down in England or Scotland." So he's reflecting on the fact that he's had quite enough fighting and would quite happily return to UK rather than going out to the Far East, because I guess the soldiers were already talking about the possibility of the war in Europe ending, but then potentially they might have to then serve out in the Far East. So this is just two letters out of a group of 13, which really gives you quite an insight into what it was like for the soldiers in this unit, and also the comradeship between them. So even when they were separated, because with Kip Broomfield being hospitalised and back in the UK, the way they still wanted to keep in touch. So it's really a really interesting set of letters. Do visit our website, thedaystory.com, to find out more about visiting the museum and also about the various events that we put on.